see you, Jenny.
Ya Alimadat, and welcome to this evening's education webinar on learning and engaging with your children. In millions of homes across the globe, at this very minute, parents are juggling their enhanced roles at home as educators. As of March 20th, the UN estimates that 1.25 billion children and young people are out of school, as 124 countries have closed learning institutions, impacting almost 3/4 of all enrolled learners. That number includes my children, and chances are yours too. Apart from a renewed appreciation of the work that teachers do, parents are very concerned with how best to engage with their children's learning. It is a question that is uppermost on all our minds. With over 50 years of a combined teaching experience in the UK, and now based at the Aga Khan Academy, Nairobi, Huzur Mukhi Alzim and Rai Saiba Rani Kareem are extremely well placed to address some of these concerns. They will be joined by Oshana Remtula, who has had first-hand experience in implementing Jamaati education programs. Today's session will be moderated by Shine Nanji, who is also a parent and keen to engage more deeply with her children's learning. I will now ask Alzim to begin this evening's session. Alzim.
Ya Alimadat, everyone, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As we are talking about education, I think we first and foremost, we must remind ourselves of what our beloved Maulana Hazrat Imam says, what the purpose of education is in Islam is. And let's remind ourselves and for this to act as a backdrop to this discussion that we're having tonight. Hazrat Imam's guidance is that the purpose of education in Islam is to discover and learn about Allah's creation, open that window up in his creation and understand Allah, to serve other Ismailis in humanity, and also to be able to kind of give some sort of time and knowledge Nazrana to help other people, other Ismailis and other communities in other parts of the world. And obviously to have a livelihood and support your families. And lifelong learning, continuing your learning all your life, very, very important as well. And obviously meritocracy and to be the best in whatever fields you choose. That's the backdrop for us for tonight. Now, let us go back to the title of this seminar today. If we go back to the title of this seminar, it says Homeschooling, Learn and Engage with Your Children. Let us explore the meaning of homeschooling a little bit more. Homeschooling used to mean when parents took their children out of school and educated them at home. This could be for several reasons. They didn't like the education provided by the school, or parents thought they could do it better, or other reasons. In this current pandemic situation, children are at home, but not of your choice, but we are forced into this situation. Children are being educated at home by the school, so it is schooling from home. So how does one engage with your children at this time? The current situation has thrown a lot of things out of sync. The normal life we know is no longer as we know it until this particular time ends. Parents are working from home, schools are closed, children are at home, Jamaat Khanas in other places of worship are closed, and so on. Before the pandemic, as a parent, we used to wish for weekends and holidays to come sooner so we could spend time with our children, quality time with our children. Daily life was busy. Personally, it appears to have got busy now. Normal routines of getting children ready for school, of dropping off children, going to work, rushing back to pick them up, left little time to be spent with the family. And now, children are at home 24/7 and have been for the past 5 weeks or so. In theory, we can have all the quality time that we want, but unfortunately, we're also housebound. This calls for a mindset change. and to take on the great opportunity to develop stronger bonds with our children. Children should not be considered as burdens. Even if both of you are working, it is challenging to adopt and adapt to this new reality. Positivity is what is called for. And we need to adapt to the new reality. We don't know how long this will be for, but it will be there for quite a while yet. The great thing to develop is parent talk. How do we talk with our children? Gone are the days when communication was one way, and father or mother said something and the child had to do it. Those times have gone. Today, we need to get to know our children a lot better and take a genuine and authentic interest in their lives and what they are learning, what they enjoy, and this will help them become more successful and good human beings in the future. We're all worried, but so are children. As children grow up and become teenagers and older, they want to be independent, are strong-willed, and know what they want. And we cannot get anywhere by nagging at them, which only helps to create a distance and a barrier between you and them. But even older children have their worries and concerns and need guiding and listening to. For example, grade 11 and upper 6th children are especially more worried about their future, especially now that exams have been cancelled. How will I be assessed is one of the questions they will ask. What grades will I be allocated by the teacher? Will I make it to uni of my choice? So those are real worries about the future of these children. Older children are quite savvy with technology, and social media plays a big part in their lives, and keeping in touch with their friends as well. It is also a period when they have a bit more time and will try different things on the internet. And this is a big worry for parents. It is only with communication with them that you get to know them better, and they will be open to advice and guidance from you. So what else can you support your children with?
Well, yes, that's a very important question. How can you support your child? We have to take a genuine interest in our children. If children know that their parents really genuinely want to know what they're up to, what they're learning, and how they're learning, they'll thrive on that. So our first responsibility is always to show children that we care and that we want to know what they're learning and what they're doing. I know at the moment, with this pandemic and children being stuck at home, parents have become mainly the main educators for their children. Yes, schools might be providing some guidance and some support and some limited teaching, but the burden does fall on the parents. However, you are also juggling with childcare as well as being children's educators. But please remember that you can't do the impossible. We are at the moment in unprecedented times, and therefore don't beat yourself with the stick. Don't burn yourself out. Please chill, because your children will not become illiterate if they do not keep up the same pace of learning as they have been used to when they were at school. How you can further support them, I will talk about a little later.
So the next question that comes up about homeschooling is that whilst my children are at home, do we need to follow a school timetable or routine? In non-pandemic times, we had routines, some of which I've touched on earlier, but focusing on children, they did too. There was school by 7:30, 6 or 7 lessons a week, which there was all structured, and they knew when playtime was, when lunchtime was, and they knew when home time was, and they knew exactly what to take with them and what to bring back home with them, and so on. It's all structured, and they knew this routine. In pandemic times, it's even more important to have a routine or a timetable. Partly, it has been devised by the school already for you. If your children get Zoom lessons and homework to follow, for example, the Aga Khan Academy, Nairobi Senior School are following the school timetable for the whole day. Yes, the actual teacher contact is about 30 minutes, but they also set work for them to do in the remaining 25 or 30 minutes. And the Zoom lessons end at 3 p.m. and the normal lessons end. In this scenario, there still will be a necessity to have a timetable. What will the children do after the lesson ends? Maybe there's a little bit of practice you already have, because that will be the same as actually they've finished school and they're at home. You might know, but it may be worthwhile actually planning a timetable. Another scenario is that there are no Zoom lessons, but children may have online work to do. So how will they organize themselves? Hence, a timetable and a routine is essential. So please sit down with them, talk to them, plan it together with the children. Blank out the times when they are taking up the lessons and fit in physical activities, PE, for example, and fun activities. Children thrive on structure and discipline. Otherwise, boredom sets in. What things should you bear in mind when planning your timetable? And the first and foremost thing to think about is the concentration spans. According to age, a general rule is that a young child concentrates for about 5 to 6 minutes plus their age. So for example, a child of about 5 will concentrate for about 11 to 12 minutes, maximum 15 minutes, and then they will need a change of activity. And a little comparison here with a structured lesson plan. If you look at a school lesson plan, the introduction, there will be a starter activity, there'll be an introduction, then this will be followed by activity, then the teacher might kind of discuss what they've done, then they move on to another activity so that the children are constantly engaged. What things should you bear in mind? One is concentration span, change of activity, okay, add up. And if you have 2 younger siblings, for example, 4 and 8, for example, if you concentrate on the 4-year-old first and give them the attention first for about 12 to 15 minutes and give them some other work, then you can concentrate on the 8-year-old. And that can work as well, quite well, because about another 15, 20 minutes is taken up with your attention with them. But if you have older siblings in senior school, for example, can you get them to help the younger ones with the reading or with assistance in maths or assistance with other things that they might need help with in their learning? Build in time for religious education. It is crucial that the routine should include what we do every day. Morning dua, for example, together. Evening time, they say dua together with them. Children, get the children to be reading Farmans, the 2 books we have had. Get each child to read 1 page, for example, and discuss the meaning with the family. What about practicing the Giryazari Tasbih with them? Or learning a new Ginan, or reciting the Ginan they already know? This will keep them going because they're out of, in a sense, of the community, in that because there are no student madrasas, they're not going to Jamaat Khana. The Jamaat Khana is now at home. And finally, the important thing is make time for fun family games. Play together. Like, for example, Monopoly, Carrom, Scrabble. Family time is to be with the mom and dad. You also learn different skills.
Okay, so what are the activities that you can do to help your children while they're at home with you? Well, the first thing is continuity is very important for children. If they have been given work from school, please set aside a time when that can be given full attention. Yes, you will need to set them up if they are getting Zoom or Team, whatever the platform might be, work from school. You might need to support them in setting that up. And yes, if you have a proper timetable set for them, it is best for them to tackle that first thing in the morning when they're still fresh. Then like I said, supporting them is important. However, supporting is one thing and doing their work for them is another. A trap that parents can often fall into is trying to get that work. They want to impress the teacher, so they might be tempted to do the work for the child. Please resist that temptation. Help your child by all means, but do not do the work for them. The objective is to get them to do the work, show them the methodology, and leave them to do the work for themselves. Like I said, continuity is very important. Therefore, reading is an activity that is done regularly in schools. Learning to read, not forgetting how to read, is very crucial for the children. So please make time to read with the children. Even if it's 10 minutes, read with your child every day. When they're reading, there are lots of books that if they haven't brought the books from school, there are lots of books available that you can fall back on. There are online books, and as you may know, Amazon have actually now provided all their books free for children to access. Choose a book that might be suitable for your child. Now that the schools are open, if you are in any doubt about which books to choose, seek help from your child's teacher or the school. Sit with the child and read the book. Help them to understand what they've read. Ask them questions. There will be simple questions that you can ask, which the child can give you the answer from just by having read the book, just knowing the text. But you can ask them more complex questions, which are not so obvious, where the child has to read between the lines and really think about what they've read. And those are inference questions, as we call them. And they need to get into the habit of getting information and knowing how to answer those questions. You can get the children to write about what they've read. They can write a review of the book. They can write about what they liked, what they didn't like. Older children can write about what they've done. They can keep a diary of what they've done in the day. And especially now that they are cooped up inside, they can actually write about their worries, their frustrations, and they will be good memories for them. Who knows, they might even be able to write a book. You know, you've heard about the Diary of Anne Frank. So you never know, we might have budding artists within our own Jamaat. Secondly, there are things that you as a family can do. Children love stories. If there are older members of the family, they can actually tell stories. I remember that when I was a child, I used to love hearing stories from my grandma. Reading a story is quite different from telling a story. So if older members of the family can tell a story, it is much more rewarding and much more enjoyable. I remember when my child was young, we used to make up stories together. One of us would start a story, the second person would have to continue that story. And by the time you'd been round to the whole family, that story had taken quite a few twists and turns and become a very exciting and interesting story. So that's another thing you can do. You can write poems together. You can read poems. You can also learn new Ginans as a family. This is a very good opportunity to do that. So there are lots of ways that you can do and help your child with reading. Moving on to maths. You might feel that if you have seen the work that the child is doing in maths at home, and you might think, oh my gosh, this is something I don't understand because the children are using a totally different method from the one I was taught at school. It doesn't matter. If your child is stuck, please help them and teach them that good old-fashioned method that you learned with. It will not do the children any harm. As you know, old is gold. So these traditional methods will always come in handy, and it is something that the children and you can fall back on. So please don't hesitate. Other things that you can do with your children is to give them and develop some basic home skills. Children need to learn how to make their own bed. So this is a good time to get them to do that. Fun cooking is another thing that you can do with the children. Learn new recipes. When you're cooking with the children, ask them lots of questions. There's a lot of maths and science that can come out of cooking activities. Weighing, How much butter do we need? How much sugar do we need? Get the children to weigh up and also learn about measures. Talk about the scientific processes that go on when you're making cookies, for example, reversible and irreversible processes, when what happens to butter and sugar when you mix it, and what will happen to that mixture when you put it in the oven. All these are things and questions you can ask the children, and they will become very interesting learning experiences. So the process is endless. There are also lots of resources, as you can probably see on your screen. The AKEB and AKYSB will shortly be sending out some more information. There is a plethora of information out there. You just have to click on the web and there are endless possibilities. But please be careful, be selective of what you choose. There are good as well as not so good sites. So be selective, ask your friends what has been tried and tested and what would be useful for your children to do. But having said all that, please remember that we all need downtime and relaxation. Parents at the moment are very, very anxious about children not falling behind with their schoolwork and their learning. But yes, it is our duty to keep on supporting them at home, but also children and you need downtime. You need relaxation time. Please do remember that children need space. They also need time just to have to themselves so that they can choose what they want to do and how they can relax. That is equally important. And of course, that downtime and relaxation is also very important for you as parents who are working so hard, and there's nobody to tell you what a good job you've done. So I'm telling you that.
Another group of children who are really worried as well are the grade 10s and the grade 12s. How will school closure affect their education? The school should be providing them with materials to carry on with their studies. They are already following syllabuses from examination boards which they will have access to. They've already completed nearly 2 tons of work, and school had to be stopped in the middle of March. So that syllabus is not necessarily has continued. So the children will get some materials from school. If they're not getting it, then you need to contact the school they are in. And the children will need to kind of make sure that they go through that work that has been set for them and really be positive about it. Inshallah, it will kind of get better and they will go back to school soon. I mean, they are in a much better position, grade 10s and grade 12s, than the grade 11s and the grade 13 students whose exams have been cancelled, results are up in the air, and the results will be based on performance, mock results, and assessments that the school will now set for them. These children have to remain positive, should continue to work with the school, and advice is to revise, relearn the work done during the last 2 terms so that they're up and running when school starts, and should have covered a little bit more of the syllabus, because when they go back, their syllabuses are supposed to be covered in 2 years. So when they go back, they're up and running with the syllabuses. They also can, during this time, develop the study skills, which will help them throughout their lives. Find out more about careers they're interested in. They could also join up for online courses. Some of them are being offered by universities, for example, Harvard. So it is all to play for. You mustn't get despondent and upset or worried. You have everything going for you. So please be positive.
Thank you, Azim. Thank you, Rani, for your brilliant insights and for sharing your knowledge. The strategies you've shared, I'm sure, are certainly appreciated and will be applied. More than anything, thank you for your words of encouragement, Rani. I will always remember, don't burn out and chill. That's my favorite part. So not only have we had questions from parents, but we've also had parents share with us positive learning experiences from the fact that they get to spend time with the children, they get to see what they're doing, they're more involved with their kids, and learning about their learning styles, how they learn. The next comment is also similar. It says that, you know, they understand how a child reacts in the classroom environment, especially when now they can see how interactive everything can be, which they don't usually get to see. And this is my favorite. Thank you to the teachers and educators. We have had one more really positive experience where some parents have had their children who are in boarding school, and one of them had their son come back. This has been really good for them because they've had time to spend with their son who wasn't often with them, and share and discuss not only about his career but his current affairs and school subjects. He's also learned how to make omelette and pizza, so now he can be prepared for university. And he's also a free home techie for them. And I'm so glad that the parents have shared these positive learning experiences with us. And I would now like to go to the Q&A session where we've got questions from parents, and I will start with the first one. How to help children develop good study habits? And I think Alzine can take this one for us.
Yeah, certainly. Good habits are a lifelong process, and it's work in progress always, because you're learning new things. You need to kind of now learn how to kind of organize yourself. You're acquiring new knowledge and what the work needs to be done, and how do you manage time effectively? Because that's the crucial bit about good study habits, and also the discipline that's involved in actually doing some developing good study habits. And I have with our child, I mean, it's a case of you tend to pull your hair out sometimes, you know, when is our child going to kind of develop good study habits? And you kind of, it's a case of cajoling, persuading the child. And once they're organized, they will go through a lot. These habits are developed, you know, at not only at home, at school, at university, and any other education that a person may undertake. So for developing home study habits, you need to have a dedicated space for study, somewhere where the child can actually work sensibly, quietly, have everything that he or she needs. And you can help by helping the child organize his work area, his assignments. Children struggle with organization. Talk about setting goals and organizing time to ensure timely completion of assignments, because there should not be endless assignments that never a little bit is done today, a little bit is done tomorrow. And the deadline should be something that needs to be discussed. We need to finish them. If it's a ongoing project, they need to kind of make sure that they're covering bits as they go along. Create a study routine. Again, that word routine comes in because that's crucial, that your child can follow every day. Stay available. Don't just leave them there, because, you know, sometimes children are put off by difficult things. So stay available to provide assistance if your child needs to help with his assignments or her assignments. Because sometimes it's a case of explaining the project words, questions, or whatever it is, so that the child will make a breakthrough for the child. Set a positive example of effective work habits for your child. You may be working from home, but you kind of have a disciplined time when they can see that, no, mom and dad have some work to do and they're getting on with it. Next question.
Yes, now this is a really important question. What is the healthy ratio of screen time to total schoolwork and homework time, regardless of home or regular school? In layman's terms, the question is, how much screen time should my kids have? And this is a concern for many parents, and I will get Ulshana to speak to this. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Shine. So in terms of what a healthy ratio of school screen time to total school homework time, there's no particularly right answer for this. We'll go into it a little bit further in a bit. But one of the things is you want to limit the screen time that your children are having, because there's a number of things that can happen. But above that, you need to, a lot of the schoolwork is going to be online right now. A lot of their websites that they can access to assist them with their schoolwork is going to be online, as well as getting to know, like getting to see their friends, and also if they want to be able to just communicate. A lot of it is happening online now. So we have to take certain precautions rather than say that there's certain amount of healthy screen time. So I think one of the precautions you should take is to keep a watch on the sites and the social media that your children are on while they are on their computers and stuff, especially young children. I think that's even more important, because for them, you need to make sure that they're not visiting these sites, giving out personal information, things like that. And so we've got two examples here of possible scenarios. The first scenario would be that Zoom lessons are set and there's homework, for example, on Seesaw. I think Akad is having that, and the children need to use the computers while doing this. So I think a good thing for this would be that once their homework is finished, limit the computer use, do something else. There's so many other activities. Today, on the Smiley website, the Endeleza site was launched, and it has a multitude of resources which we can go and, if you need your children to do other activities, for example, yoga and stuff like that, there's a whole bunch of other activities and ideas for resources there that you can limit the screen time and use those resources. I know they're online, but use them to do other activities that are not necessarily linked online. You can allow them to watch TV, but make sure that their bedtime is set up so that there's no sort of vicious cycle that they're staying up really late at night. And then I guess the next scenario would be that schools are only set online work from websites. Depending on the number of subjects, it may not be the whole day. So I think here you can either decide, to keep a timetable for basic thing. If you want to do it in the morning, you can keep your timetable and stagger breaks in between so that the children have breaks. And then maybe you say the afternoon will be more for physical activity and things like that. Still allow them to watch TV, and also for bedtime, keep a regular bedtime for them. Okay, so the next one is about how to reduce mental fatigue and eye strain from too much screen time. I think this is a big worry that parents happen to have. So let's go and break it down into what are the problems with too much screen time. So the problems with too much screen time is dry eyes. That's firstly, because when you're on a screen, you tend to forget to blink, whether that's children or that is for like older adults. We tend to, when we're looking at a screen, you just generally forget, like if you think about when you're watching TV or something, you forget to blink. So with children, you need to remind them continuously blink while they're on the screens. It's important to blink because when you're blinking, you're distributing your tear film, and that prevents having dry eyes. So that's one of the problems with too much screen time. The other problem, which is a lot of parents will tell their children, don't be on the computer, you're going to spoil your eyes. Well, actually, there's a lot of evidence out there. There's conflicting evidence on this. But the main point is that a lot of reading work and close vision work happens to increase the chances of you getting myopia or short-sightedness. And so when kids are on their computers for long periods of time, there's a chance that they can develop, at least when they're younger than 10, can develop this short-sightedness. And that goes for reading as well. So when parents say, like, too much computer time is too bad for you, it's also reading. So it's both of them. The other thing is that before bed, you also, if you've got your devices, the blue light from the screens tends to disrupt your circadian rhythm. And so children that there's a lot of evidence now, not necessarily just children, but with even adults, is that the blue lights are causing people to have poor quality sleep, which is causing a whole range of other problems. Some of the things that a lot of phones and stuff now have, and computers, is that you can reduce the blue light in the phone or computers before then, or the other alternative is just turn it off an hour before bedtime. And screens also cause eye strain and headaches after if there's too much or excessive amounts. So what can you do about all of these things? Firstly, like we said before, blink. Make sure when your children are on the screens, you remind them to blink. The second thing is, if they're really complaining that the screens are irritating their eyes, they're really causing lots of problems, visit an optometrist, ophthalmologist, and maybe they might need some lubricating drops. The third thing is the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, take a break for at least 20 seconds and look at something at least 20 feet away. The other thing you can do is what you can tell your children is if you situate yourself outside a window or something, then, sorry, not outside a window, if they sit their desk next to a window, then every time they're finished, about 20 minutes into their Zoom lesson or something, I know it might sound a little bit crazy for them to look straight out the window for 20 seconds, but tell them to do it. It's nice to have a good break for your eyes. Look at the furthest point they can look at for at least 20 seconds. And then the thing about the link to short-sightedness, there's a fair bit of research that shows that if children go outdoors for a certain period of time, that link to short-sightedness is reduced. So even when you're reading and doing things up close with children, if they go outside for a couple of hours, that effect of reading up close is combated for a certain period. So yes, make your day varied, make the timetable varied. So after a couple of hours or an hour or so of being on the screen and everything, tell them to go outside, play, not be cautious because we're sort of in a pandemic, but at least go outside, look at things far away and give their eyes a break. And then in terms of the disrupted circadian rhythm, just get your children to put their devices away at least maybe an hour before bed. What's a nice thing to do is to just take a book into bed and read before you go to sleep. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Alshana. I mean, those tips will certainly help many parents. The next question is really something that we are all a bit confused about. What is the difference between homeschooling, e-learning, virtual learning with teachers, without live teachers? And I believe, Alzim, maybe you can help us.
Yeah, thank you, Shane. Let's start with, I thought the best way to answer this question would be to look at definitions of what these things are. So we'll start with homeschooling. As mentioned in the earlier presentation, when parents decide that they want to educate their children at home and stop sending them to school, or may employ a teacher to do this. So the children are at home and the parents are educating the child, or someone else comes in specially, okay? Now this has changed during the pandemic times as parents have been forced by the circumstances to kind of look after the children and try and help them with their education. It is now schooling from home. And in some cases, children are getting Zoom lessons from a distance by the school teachers. In most cases, parents have to do either some or all of the homeschooling. So this is similar to e-learning, learning conducted via the electronic media, typically on the internet, okay? So it's all related, e-learning, homeschooling, with the way it is going on, distance learning. But let's move on to the next bit, distance learning. Lessons or lectures are broadcast by correspondence online or post without a student needing to attend school. This is happening now to an extent, but Zoom lessons or from other platforms are more interactive as the students engage with the teacher and other students. Online learning, and I know people have done online courses. So online learning defined in simple terms is the ability to learn on a virtual platform. People do online courses and also which increasingly involves distance learning as well. So it's a combination of things using the internet, e-learning, electronic learning. It's all involved by using a computer. Okay. Let's go on to the next one.
Thank you. One more burning question. How do we assess ourselves as educators at home? Are we doing a good job at homeschooling? And how often should we do it? Rani, I believe you can take this.
Yeah, I can try. Well, I think that that relationship between a parent and a child is a very important and a very crucial one. When you pick up your children from school, when they are at school, or now that they're home, showing an interest in actually asking them what they've been doing is a very good way of getting to know how much the child has done that day and what they've learned. Checking on their homework, getting involved and finding out what exactly they were asked to do and how much of it they've done. that will also give you an idea of how they've managed to cope, what their understanding has been, whether they found the work to be too difficult or whether they've managed. In which case, if they've found the work too easy to do, then you can get back to the teacher and say, my child needs a little bit more challenge. Or if they found it too challenging, by the same token, you can ask the teacher to make it a little easier, or you can help the child then to fill that gap. You can look at the children's reports. You should be getting regular reports from the school, be they half-termly, depending on the school, or termly at least, so that you're kept in the picture of how the child is doing across each subject. I think your biggest indicator will be if you have that conversation with your child when they come home or after their lesson. Ask them, how did you get on? How did you find your lesson? That's your biggest indicator. But of course, if you want to know exactly how they're doing, then it's by looking at the reports, looking at their work. If the child shows an unusual concerned behavior or is unhappy or upset, then obviously that is a serious indicator which you might need to explore, find out from the child what's bothering them. Is it something that is related to work that they're not coping with at school? In which case you need to then take that up with the teacher or with the school. Having a good rapport with the school and the teacher is a very good idea. Just very casual conversations, making sure that you attend school on parent-teacher consultation days, taking those opportunities to go and have a look at the work of the children, to see how they're doing and getting an indication that they are keeping up to the ability that is appropriate for their age. I, as a teacher, always say to my staff that parents want to know the truth. Even if the child is struggling, don't pull the wool of their eyes. I think it is the right of every parent to know how their child is progressing. And if they are struggling, they have a right to know how their child is struggling so they can work with the school to fill that gap. So looking at the books, checking their homeschool link books, their diaries, whatever they call them, just keeping a close eye on how your child is getting on gives you a real good indication of their progress.
Thank you so much. One more thing, what tips can you suggest and what kind of tools can we use to make home learning more effective? I believe, Shazi, you can answer that for us.
So as you can see on the screen, one of the most effective ways of ensuring that home learning is effective is a quiet, dedicated space for learning, either in their room or somewhere in an area that is quiet and somewhere that's a dedicated space for your children to learn in. Somewhere to keep your child's books, reference material, and like Ozzy mentioned earlier, helping them to organize that space, whether it's in a bookcase or a bookshelf, just arranging a nice space and where your children's work can continue uninterrupted. Hardware, computer screen, laptop, iPad. Obviously, if your child is doing distance learning or online learning, those are key materials that your child will need. And then equipment, whether it's books to write, pencils to write with. But also, what I also want to highlight is the issue of respect when you're learning at home. Respecting your child's learning time, respecting your child's learning space. Try to keep the home environment quiet when they're learning. Don't go barging into their space when they're learning. And for many of us at this point, it's easy to do that because our home is not just a home, but it's a school and it's our workplace too. And the reason I bring this up is this idea of respect is that it'll help your child internalize that what he or she is doing is important, which it is. And they too will begin to value the time that they spend on learning. Thanks, Shine.
Thank you. Thank you. Those were certainly some insights I didn't have. Now, here is another really important question, and I think every parent is concerned about this at the moment. How is this going to affect my child's future learning? We know that they're not fully engaged, at least we feel that way. And And I would like Rani to help us with that.
Okay, yeah, sure. I will try my best. Well, as you know, the government has said virtually all over the world that exams are not going to be taking place this year. And obviously that has an impact on university entries, progression into the following year. So all these things are very much up in the air. Parents have asked, well, you know what? Some parents say, I don't believe in this virtual learning thing. Does my child really have to engage in this? Well, children do need continuity. They need continuity in their learning. We as educators know that when children have had a long break from school, and usually this is after the long holidays, in the 6 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever they have, when they come back, there's always a lag. Children forget. And no matter what the age is, we've found that you need to take a step back and do a lot of catching up, a lot of revision before they're ready to move on in the new learning, in the new year's curriculum. Now, if you ask the question, what if my child is not engaged in this virtual learning or engage in this learning that is being offered at the moment, then what are we saying? Are we going to take that chance? Because the options are that either the children keep on with whatever is on offer, supplemented with what you can support them with at home, so that they do not forget and that they can hit the ground running when they go back to school. Teachers will be able to catch up and help the children to catch up with what little, I hope, inshallah, they miss in this period that they're not in school. It's so unpredictable. We don't know how long this period will be. And therefore, because of that uncertainty, it is absolutely crucial that children do keep up with this distant learning. No matter how little you might value it, impact on the children will be immense. At least they're being kept on their toes, they're being kept and forced to look at their books and to read their books and to keep up with their work, because what you don't want is for when the children go back to school to have to start from scratch again or from a position where they were not before they broke up from school, and then having to repeat a year because of what they have forgotten or have not had the opportunity to keep up with. So my answer would be, it's very, very important, and we need to maintain that continuity for the children.
Thank you, Rani. This leads me to the next question. And there are very many parents who are worried about this, especially those who work long hours, who are essential service providers, and they want to know, how do I ensure my child is learning? You know, we don't have the capability or the interaction with the child the way the teacher has, and I'm unable to fully engage with my child during learning. Alzim, could you help us out with that?
Yes, certainly, Shine. I can empathize with that. You know, being sort of both of us being sort of working parents, I have found in the past that it's very difficult while we have our responsibilities of being teachers and so on. We're not only bringing work home, but also we have got our child to think of. And so these are the tensions you have as a working parent. And it's very, very important that you need to know that your child is keeping up, is learning, is doing the things he or she is supposed to be doing. And time given to the child will pay for itself later on because they've actually kept up with the work. Now, the important thing here is let's say you're coming back home, you don't know what they've done and whether they're learning or not. Talk to your child about what they've learned on a daily basis. Sometimes how was your day today? Oh, it was okay, fine. That's some of the typical answers you will get. But actually, try and delve deeper into what was it okay about? Which lessons did you have? Tell me a little bit more about what was interesting, that history lesson you had. What did you learn? What was it about? Was it about the Romans? What did you learn about it? Look at the work they've done, because they will be bringing the books on. And when, as Ran has already mentioned, that parents' evenings, etc., you can actually go and have a look at what children are doing. And children are allowed to bring books home, so you can actually look at them to see what they're doing. They will have the diary. Are they keeping up with their homework that they're supposed to be entered in the diary? Some children are not very good at keeping diaries. Very important that you actually monitor that so that they know what work has to be done. And hence, this is all part of the study habits they need to develop, the discipline they need to have. And what about spending time reading with your child? And this is a fun thing to do, is to sometimes reading with your child, they can read one page, you can read another page, and then asking them questions to gauge their understanding where possible. And that's important. I mean, just to share a little bit here, one holiday we took a book that our child was reading in school, and we all read little bits and discussed it. And that was so encouraging that we all enjoyed that book. There's Dr. Jekyll and Hyde. You know, that was the book that we read. And it was fun to do together. And we spent that time, we allocated the time during the holiday. We said, okay, 1 hour straight after breakfast, we will read the book. And it worked. It does work. It's enjoyable. And when you're really concerned and you're not sure, I mean, maybe the signs from your child are not very positive, then contact the teacher and find out how your child is coping with the work. They will have all sorts of subjects to do, the core subjects, whether it's English, math, science, languages, all the other subjects that they have to do, see how they're getting on. In primary children, they will usually have one teacher. In secondary school, they will have different teachers doing different subjects. So it's very important to maintain that school, a link with the school and with your child. Very important, so that you can ensure that your child is learning. And reports are crucial. Looking at the reports as well, before it's too late. Not at the end of the year, but termly or half-termly reports, scrutinize them well, and so you know where your child is.
Thank you, Azim. And I believe this leads us to the next question. How can I help my child focus independently if I'm a single parent or I don't have time for that? And it's really important that the child himself or herself knows how to focus and learn independently. Rani?
Sure. Right. Obviously, developing independence is something that is progressive. It does not happen overnight. It also depends on the level of the child's confidence and their ability. This can be done, very gradually. There are children who are naturally very adventurous, very independent because of their experiences in early childhood, and there are others who are more reluctant to let go, and so they need that little coaxing. The best way to handle this situation and to develop independence among children is to give them tasks that they can work on independently, which you know that they are quite capable of doing. So even if it's just a repetition, it doesn't matter, because once a child gets the feeling that they are succeeding in that activity that you've given them, and they've done it independently, so you give them the task, you move away, you say, good, yeah, I want you to do this, set them a time and say, okay, I'll come back in 5 minutes and I'll see how you're getting on. And then with encouragement, not take over, let them carry on with the task. And if it's a task that you know that they are going to be successful with, that'll give them a big boost in confidence. You can even reward them for it. Once they've done that task, you can then very cleverly, slowly increase that degree of difficulty that you're going to set in the task. And gradually you will see that as the child is gaining confidence and getting that positive feedback of being successful and getting a reward as well, then obviously they will try and get more and more done. And before you know it, they'll be working independently. Please bear in mind, though, that the child, as we've said earlier, has a limited concentration span as to adults. So the activities that you give them should be age appropriate and appropriate to their level of concentration. Things that you know that they will be able to manage within that time. Don't set them an essay, let's say, to a 6 or 7 year old, which is going to be beyond their capability. That will completely destroy their confidence. So age appropriate, age ability, yes, for some children it might need to be a little challenging, because if you make it too easy all the time, then they're going to get bored as well. So it's something that you need to gauge very carefully, but working from a position where you're giving them an activity that they can do independently, work on independently, and gradually make it more and more difficult or more challenging, and then moving away. But by then they're getting the confidence that they can do it. And before you know it, they'll be flying. It's like learning how to ride a bike. You're supporting them to start off with, and gradually they get the confidence, the balance, and off they go. So it's a bit like that. Okay, thank you. Right. These are just, yeah, do you want to take those, Alvin?
Well, some things to avoid, and I think these are, I think probably most parents will empathize with these and know that they're obvious, but I think we need to mention them, just a reminder. Important to remember, where are they working? Are there any distractions? TV, other siblings, mobile phone, and they'll find it difficult, just like we will. If we have distractions, then we can't actually focus as much. If the work is difficult, I think Rani has mentioned it, they will lose focus, parents need to help them. If they're on a computer, a lot will depend on what websites. Some have distracting pop-ups, as you all know, and they will want to click on those. Are they supervised? I think you can't just leave a child to get on with their own way and not supervise them as well. Generally, the tendency will be to do what they like. I think that brings us to the end.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much to the panelists, Shazmin, Alshana, and Alzim, or I should say, Huzurmuki Alzim and Raisai Barani. Thank you so much. I'm sure the parents have appreciated the knowledge you've shared with us. And we know you may have more questions or comments. Please let us know. You've got the email address on the screen. It's akebk@akji-kenya.org. And thank you for joining us. Good luck and keep safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.